Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Do you find yourself stuck in a timeshare? Get the real facts about the timeshare industry and your options for cancellation. Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group, has put together a free information guide that reveals the secrets the timeshare industry doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Get this timeshare cancellation guide absolutely free.
Get your free guide at iCancelTimeshare.com. That's iCancelTimeshare.com. iCancelTimeshare.com.
It's 102.9 WBLM. You've got a ticket to ride on one of the most amazing journeys in rock and roll for the next hour. It's the Captain and Celeste, and we are pleased to meet for the first time. May Pang is with us. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome to Portland.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited. I'm really excited to do all this travel. You know, Portland is beautiful.
Yeah.
I had my lobster. I had to have a lobster. And just in case I was going to miss it, I needed to. The first day I said to Scott, my business partner, I said, come on. I said, lobster tonight. I said, and I'm ready to do another one.
Oh, great. Yeah. As much as possible. May Pang was John Lennon's companion and lover during the Lost Weekend. Lost Weekend, some would say that's 3, 4, 5 days at the most.
Right, and it was how long did that last?
Well, we lived together for over a year and a half, and then of course our relationship spanned both working and knowing and friendship and all that. It's 10 years to the month.
Wow. Yeah. Wow, that's a long weekend, man.
Yeah, it was a long weekend, wasn't it?
It all started with you. You kind of hustled your way into Apple Records with the Beatles, which I love. And then you ended up being John and Yoko's personal assistant?
Yeah, I know. They had a few, but they liked me. I was in New York, so I was doing all the different things when they would arrive into New York. They needed somebody, and I somehow got picked. And, and it just kept going from there.
That's amazing. And then when they move into Dakota, the office is right there. You're with them all day long?
Oh, yeah. The whole thing was that before that, my office was somewhere else, which was fine, because there was a few of us running around. Yeah. Once they got to Dakota, I was summoned to come up there, and I'm going, oh, all right. And it was an amazing building, obviously. So I walked in. And my first impression was going through the door opens, and I see Yoko sitting on the floor because there was no furniture yet. They had just moved in. And she was on the phone. That's the most important thing, is getting that phone in.
Gotta get the phone.
And then next thing you know, it was like she looked at me. She goes, welcome, May. She goes, look, isn't this amazing? Look what I found. And I said, absolutely. And the original apartment, it was 11 rooms. Yeah. And I know, right?
That's a big apartment,
right? In New York City, I have one room,
Right,
so so it was 11 rooms. She goes, "Let me show you where you're going to be." And I said, "Oh, I guess I was moving. I had no idea, And I said, I'm moving out of that place down in on Broome Street now up to the Dakota, and I had a beautiful view, of course, of Central Park.
Oh my God!
But the thing was, this was actor, for anybody who's older would know, this actor, Robert Ryan, from the 50s, 40s actor. And this was his apartment.
Wow.
And when his wife died, he just said, I can't, he didn't want to be there. The memories were too intense for him. And so he rented it out. And John and Yoko ended up renting that apartment. It was just the most amazing thing to have.
Amazing.
I mean, like,
May is here all weekend long. It's a photo exhibit that will blow your mind called The Lost Weekend, Cove Street Arts. So come on down for First Friday Art Walk tonight and go on over to Cove Street and Bayside and see this incredible thing. And May will be, you're going to be, Scott's going to be working you all weekend.
Scott's going to work me all weekend. You don't understand. I'm chained to the chair. That is not, there's no place I'm going. Somebody says, the other day we were in Northampton, and the gallery owner says, I'm taking you out to lunch, and he almost had a heart attack.
Come on, Scott.
I mean, the look on his face was like, oh my God, you're going out to lunch?
So
and I looked at him and said, too bad.
Exactly. Well, you're the star of the show. So you can come down and meet May, see her amazing things. As you were working with John and Yoko, one of the things you did was get wardrobes for videos and films, and the Beatles were so far ahead of their time with that kind of stuff. So you did the wardrobe, and we want to play the song from the video the film that you did. You want to set it up for us?
I forgot what song.
We'll do Imagine.
Oh, it's the Imagine one, of course.
No big deal. It's
No,
just,
no,
Just
imagine.
imagine. Which one is it? She's so cool.
Well, you know what it is? There were so many things we were doing. If you look at it, and they were ahead of their time. They did their songs, and and it was vignettes to each of the songs.
Yeah.
And this was the first time, like you would do what MTV back in the day, the videos, and they did it to film, and nobody had been doing that, and so they were doing it, and so it was really interesting.
All right, May Pang is here. It's 102.9 WBLM. That's the only number one song John Lennon had as a solo artist.
That's true. That was in his lifetime. Not saying that he didn't have other number ones.
Right.
Although somebody said, "Oh, he had 3," and I'm looking at it. I said, "Yeah, but they're not his.
That's not his.
Even though he wrote it or participated in it, that was not his. He did Elton's. When Lucy in the Sky, that was one, and of course Bowie, Fame.
That's right.
And yet, but that's not John's. This was John's.
He had a lot of. It's a great song. May Pang is with us. She was John's lover and companion during the Lost Weekend. Worked with John for many, many years. You were in the studio for the making of the song we just played?
Oh, yeah. Whatever gets you through the night. I mean, we had heard rumors because Elton was in town in New York, and he said, might be coming by. And I said, oh, well, okay. So John said, it'd be great. Let him come by. And he came in, and he said, oh, what are you guys working on? And, John's saying, I'm thinking about certain things. He goes, well, let's hear a couple of things. And he played him Whatever Gets You Through the Night. And he says, I have an idea. Would you let me put something on? He says, absolutely.
Sure, Elton John. Sure.
Yeah,
if you want
okay.
to, go for it, buddy.
And he did. And he heard it in one take, and he went on to the piano, and he said, I have an idea. And he did that.
It's so great. And then, of course, the story is Elton says it's going to be number one, and John says...
Oh yeah.
doesn't think it will.
When they were picking, when Capitol was picking all the songs, he said, "Oh, this one, they want this one." And John's going, "I'm not sure." We had like 4 or 5 different ones, and they finally settled on this one. He goes, "I'm not sure." And Elton said, "Well, listen, it becomes number one. You'll have to come on stage and sing with me." And John said, okay. And later on,
it'll never happen.
It'll
Right.
never happen. He just
Sure.
kept saying it'll never happen. And we went home. He said, I said, what if it does? He goes, we'll cross that bridge when it comes to it, And of course, when it happened, and of course it was near Thanksgiving with the big show for him in Madison Square Garden. And Elton was kind. He said, you don't really have to do it. And John said, no. A bet is a bet. I'm going to honor it. And what we did was we ended up going up with Elton on his private jet, which I had never done before, of course, all these little things.
Right.
We went on to see him in Boston up here because he wanted to see what the show looked like.
Right.
And so that he can get a feel. And we did that, and then we flew back to New York that night. And
Did it?
Yeah.
And John hadn't been on stage, I'm guessing, in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 1-to-1, which was in '72, but that was his show, and that was the last time he really did anything. So this was now 74.
God, what is the stories you have. May Pang is here. She's at Cove Street Arts all weekend long. You can meet her. You can talk to her. She'll tell you these stories, too. And you can see her amazing photographs of the Lost Weekend.
Yeah, I'll be chained to the desk. Don't worry.
John Lennon at Cove Street Arts. Make sure you do that. Not only did May Pang work on certain songs, she's also on one of the greatest John Lennon songs of all time. And I didn't know it was you till recently.
I know.
For Number 9 Dream.
I know everybody, and when they see my movie, which I made, and it's funny, I did this documentary mainly because there are so many mistruths out there, and so I know a lot of people have come up and they've said, I didn't realize it was you.
Yeah.
And he goes, I knew what it was, and they said, even I'll tell you, remember Chad and Jeremy? I remember Jeremy Clyde said to me, he was walking out from a show, and I had just seen him, and he turned around and he goes, I did not know it was you.
Yeah, it's incredible. All right, listen carefully for May Pang. It's Number 9 Dream. It's WBLM. Maine's Classic Rock 102.9 WBLM. I'm the Walrus. May Pang is with us. What a pleasure to meet you and have you here today. Thank you so much.
I'm having fun. I always like live radio.
Right? Tightrope walk. Yeah. May Pang was John Lennon's companion and lover and workmate and collaborator and confidant. for many, many years, what we call the Lost Weekend. She's here this weekend at Cove Street Arts on East Bayside with a photography exhibit that you're going to love. May will be there. You can meet her. She is a lovely person, and we're kind of digging in today. So you're working with John Lennon and Yoko Ono. How does the romantic part happen?
Oh, I know that's the part that everybody gets confused on, or they hear rumors. That's why I made the documentary, The Lost Weekend, A Love Story, because everybody has now retold my story, and it's not correct. You know, they were having problems. John and Yoko were really having their marital issues. And if you're working in that household, you could feel it, and it was not pleasant. But you have to ignore it because you're working for both of them. So it'd be like he was walking in. He came in. He says, "May I need a keyboard or whatever, something?" And I said, "Great." He literally walked out the door, and she walks in. I'm thinking, "Oh, okay." And then she walked in, and she says, "Have you seen John?" And I was like, did you just miss him? I mean, that's how quick it was.
Wow.
And they weren't really communicating.
Clicking,
yeah, they weren't, and it was really tough. So she came into my office one morning before my first cup of coffee, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh God, she's already giving me something to do, and I'm like not even ready. And I got my pad, my pen, and all of a sudden it was like, you know, John and I are not getting along. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry to hear. Of course. And then she said, you know, he's going to start seeing other people. And I'm thinking, as she's saying that, going, oh, God, now who is it? You know, X factors come in. And then she says, but you don't have a boyfriend. All of a sudden I just went, what? No, I don't want this. I said, I'm not interested. He goes, oh, I know, but I think you should go out with him. And I said, no, I don't think so.
Yoko's telling you to go out with John.
Yes. And I'm sitting there saying, I'm not interested. I've been with these people for a few years now. The last thing I'm thinking about is going out with John Lennon, although my friends are going, what's wrong with you? It's John Lennon. I said, I don't care. You don't work for him. I do. I know what it's about. I don't want to be there.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's how it started.
Did Yoko think you were like a safe person to like set him up with? Like, oh, you know, you had your place in their relationship?
I guess so. You know what? It's only in retrospect that I think that, because everybody said, why didn't I tell him what was happening? It would take too long. It would be too complicated. So I just used to deal with our relationship and what was happening on a daily basis.
So he didn't know that Yoko was setting this all up?
No. Had no idea, because we later talked about how this whole thing happened. He was in shock. So when she approached out to me, I freaked out. I stayed in my office. I didn't want to come out. And we were supposed to go to the recording studio, which got canceled that day. And he was in his office, and he's in his bedroom, sorry. And she comes to me, she goes, I fixed it for you. And she goes, what do you mean fixed it for me? For what? And he goes, I fixed it so you can go out with May. He goes, what are you talking about? How do you know I even like her? He goes, oh, I know you like her. So he couldn't come out of his bedroom, and I couldn't.
Wow.
So I couldn't come out of mine, and I'm like sitting there going, okay, I want to go home. That's all. You know, I was freaking out.
Of course. But then you guys do get together.
That's because he pursued me in the end very heavily.
Of course, right. But then there is a real love affair there. It sounds like this cockamamie kind of setup, but then it becomes
a relationship.
A beautiful, real relationship.
Yeah.
And then the Lost Weekend begins. And you guys go out to California.
That's now, to set a record straight, please. Yoko did not send us out there. John, on a whim, was talking to his lawyer, who lived out in L.A., and he turned around and he said, he goes, Harold, when are you going back to L.A.? And he goes, oh, tonight, I'm booked on a plane tonight. And he just looked at him and he said, well, May and I will be on that plane with you.
Wow. Two things start happening when you guys get out there. One, John Lennon really, I think, is having a really good time. And who is his posse when you guys are out in California?
Well, when we first got out there, we didn't know who was around town, and of course, you end up seeing everyone from Mickey Dolenz to Harry Nilsson. Then we went to see Phil, you know, on his turf, and because, now John was really into recording because he had just finished doing Mind Games.
Phil Spector.
We went, we went to see him, because Phil, we're in town. And John says, you know what? I think I like to do an album of my favorite songs. And Phil would be the best person. So we went to see him. And boy, that turned into something else.
So John is like, he's partying. He is having a great time. It's him. It's Ringo. It's Keith Moon. It's Alice Cooper. They're drinking. They're getting kicked out of the Troubadour. Were you like the den mother of this? Because you don't party.
No, I don't party.
So how are you keeping control of this chaos in Los Angeles?
It's because I didn't drink or
Right.
take drugs. And as I always tell people, I may have been the youngest one in the group, which I was, but I was the oldest one in the group.
Yeah.
And everybody came to me, and it's like John would say, May will take care of it. And, and he was right. I took care of everything.
So John is going off at the same time, and we'll get to this after the break. An amazing reconciliation is happening for John Lennon and some critical people in his life. We'll talk about it coming up. May Pang is with us. She's at Cove Street Arts Tonight. It's John Lennon, Mind Games. It's 102.9 WBLM. May Pang is with us. You were around for that record, making of that record.
I was definitely around for that record. It was just great because it was all the heavy session musician, New York session. I just was listening to the bass line of Gordon Edwards, and I loved Gordon.
It's a great
it was
great
terrific,
song.
yeah.
May Pang is in town. You can meet her. You can buy her amazing photography of the Lost Weekend. She was confidant, companion, lover. I would say, just watching the documentary, and say if this is wrong, probably the most free, happiest time of his life was with you. Agree, disagree?
I guess I would have to agree because he was really, he was up for anything. It was great. We had people over our house all the time, Mick Jagger, David Bowie, Elton, McCartney. They were always constant visitors at our home in New York.
But when you were in California with John, you helped reconcile the relationship between John and Paul. This is the Beatles had just dissolved and broken up.
No, not yet. That was early on in 74. So the first time we had just seen Paul was in the end of March of 74.
Right.
And they just happened to show up during our first night of the Harry Nilsson session and at the Burbank Studios. And that was the famous jam session, which Mal Evans and I got a chance to play tambourines on.
So this jam session is John and Paul playing music again.
Yes.
For the first time since the breakup of the Beatles.
Oh, well, in an unofficial way of breakup, yeah.
But the first time they played together.
Yeah, in a long time.
What was it like? So you're kind of helping patch this thing together?
Yeah, well, you know what? It was them, John said, oh, surprised that Paul came by. We would talk. And I said, well, they're your friends. So, like...
Nice.
It was just one of those, and even when we went back to New York in our apartment, we had just moved in. The doorbell rings, and it's we had a buzzer, and the doorman's ringing, and I said, it's nighttime. It's like 8:00. I'm going, who's ringing us? We don't know anybody in this neighborhood that be ringing us. And he goes, I'll answer it. And he goes, I'm doing something, and I go, John, who is it? And he goes, it's Paul. And I'm going, okay. He goes, what should I do? I said, what do you mean, what should I do? He's your friend. Send him up. Paul and Linda,
Yep.
I said, send him up. And
Yep.
he goes, okay, can you handle it? I said, what is there to handle? They're your friends.
I love that. You kept it simple.
Yeah, and they showed up, and that you see that picture of Paul and Linda coming through the door.
It's incredible. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
The other thing that's amazing is, and maybe even more important, is that you help John get to know his very young son, Julian, who he had not spent a lot of time with, is not allowed a lot of access to. And Julian and John get to know each other thanks to you, May.
Well, you know what? I know what it's like not to have your parent, or a parent, especially a father. He needed a father. He needed a father figure. And so I thought, well, here's my chance to make sure that things go in that direction. And I also offered, made sure that Cynthia and John actually gave closure to their relationship, which they never got.
Yeah, Cynthia's Julian's mom.
Yeah.
Right.
And they never had that when they broke up.
Because John went from her straight to Yoko?
Yeah.
Got it.
And there was nothing in between. So he never saw her, and that was it. And so this was a time, whatever feelings that they were going to have, they can get it out. And it really made life a lot easier, which I thought for Julian. And, especially we wanted to see him more often. I mean, Julian was over at our place in New York, it was New York more often, whenever he could.
Right. And what's your relationship with Julian Lennon now?
Well, we still have a relationship. We talk to each other. I mean, his last album, he wrote to me and he said, "Do you have any pictures of me when I was younger?" Oh. And so that one photo of his album cover is from a series that, when we were down in Disney World.
Yeah.
And so I took that.
I think you're being humble because when you watch the documentary, Lost Weekend, The Love Story, Julian speaks so wonderfully about you. It gives me goosebumps. And he loves you. And I think he's so thankful that you gave him his father.
I think it was that important.
Yeah.
You're at that age.
Yeah. But John kind of lives on through him and the fact that you two were so close and that you helped do that. All these years later, we got to wrap it up. All these years later, you think about the Lost Weekend. You think about it. What do you think it meant to John, and what does it mean to you?
Well, the Lost Weekend. It was just it's a time period that I could help facilitate and bring people closer, and relationships, and mend fences, and that's really. I'm happy that I could mend fences, work on records that I always loved, the music, and do all of that.
Yep.
And so, a lot of people can watch the documentary so they can get a glimpse of the other side of me. The Lost Weekend, The Love Story, and they can watch if they have Prime or any of the internet. It's a film on demand.
Yeah.
And they could go onto my
They
could go on my website, maypang.com, and they'll hook in.
Cove Street Arts this weekend. You can meet May. You can see her photography of the Lost Weekend.
I'm chained to the desk. Don't worry.
Scott Siegelbaum will not let her take a lunch break.
And the photography's for sale too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't bring anything for May to sign.
Yeah.
She won't do that. Respect that, please.
If you do buy something, she'll sign it. But don't bring a book or an album or something.
Cove Street Arts all weekend, and she's lovely. Can't thank you enough for the time today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it very much. I can't believe the time has gone by.
I know. The hour flies by so much. Come down, Cove Street Arts, May Pang, everybody, on WBLM.
I Dig a Pygmy by Charles Hort.
Shop Macy's VIP sale going on now. Use your coupon or Macy's card and take an extra 30% off the latest fall trends from designers that rarely go on sale. And save 15% off skincare, makeup, fragrances, and more. Plus, shop fall specials for even more great deals on top brands at Macy's. Savings off regular and already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.